All right, we are going to have a demonstration night, and for our demonstration, we are worldwide woodturners. And for that, our demonstration master, Dane Chandler, has lined up somebody from the United Kingdom. Who do we have, Dane?
We have Paul Hannaby. Let's bring him up. There he is. Hey, Paul.
Evening.
Welcome. Thank you.
Before Paul gets started, folks, we're going to mute the entire audience at this time. Paul, you may have to come back up on.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, in fact, I can't do it. I lost the control of that. But we're going to mute everybody and then get you back up. Dane, can you do a mute, everybody?
I can do it. Yeah, I've done it. It's done. Right, okay, we're up. Good. Yeah, before we start, I just want to show you something here. It's nothing to do with wood turning, but I thought you might like to see these. That's enamel on copper. My wife makes these. I didn't do these. My wife did, but she left them in my workshop because she borrows my belt sander to sand the bottoms of these. That's one of the things that she gets up to.
Those are nice.
So it's yeah, it's glass enamel on copper.
Very
and there's
pretty.
another little one.
Oh, love it.
And there's the inside of that one.
Yeah,
Nice.
tell her nice job.
Very nice.
Beautiful work. I do enameling on some of my birdhouse tops, so that's really beautiful work.
Okay. Yeah, she does pictures and bowls and jewelry and things like that as well. So a bit of an assortment. I thought you might be interested to see that. Yeah, tonight the plan is we're going to do a Christmas tree to start with, and then probably something else because that won't take too long. But where this started, it's an exercise in skew work. So I'm going to start off with that, which is it will get you in the 2x4 club because this is 3x3 pine by about 7 or 8 inches long, but you can make them any size you like, really. In the past, I've made them up to about 4x4. So if you've got a bigger piece of wood or a smaller piece of wood, you can use what you've got. But that's where I'm going to start. But where this particular sort of one started, I did a demo a few weeks ago up in London, and we couldn't do a lot of sanding or use a lot of volatile finishes. So I thought, what can I do that I can turn pretty much straight off the tool with minimal or no sanding? So I thought, if I can do something with a skew, get a good cut off the skew, I don't need to sand it. So what I'm going to do is do that almost entirely with a skew. So it's a good exercise in skew work, if nothing else. But I thought it's the right time of year to be doing things like Christmas trees anyway. So that's the plan. And like I said, we'll probably do something else after this as well. But that's where we'll start. So I'll switch over to camera over here. So to start with, I'm just going to mark the ends. The accurate way is to draw 2 lines, and where they cross is the middle. But what I do sort of for speed is just lock my fingers together and draw a line on each of the 4 sides, and then the same the other end. And where the center of that box is, you can see that one better on the camera. Then I get an automatic center punch, put it in the center there, and just put a little indentation there with the automatic punch. So that helps me to locate that on the lathe. So I've got, as you can see, I've got a chuck here, but I want to use my drive center. So for speed, I'm just going to use a Morse taper adapter. I think I might have showed this on one of my previous demos, but put the Morse taper adapter in there, and then the drive center in there. So it saves me a bit of time, not having to take the chuck on and off. So initially, I just want to rough this down to a cylinder, and then put it in the chuck. So mounting that between centers, that's ready to roll. Just about got a long enough rest there. So I'm just adjusting the rest to give me just a little bit of a gap between that and the piece of work, and then spin it to make sure it spins freely. Start the speed low, And as always, I stand out of the way the first time I turn anything on. So if I've forgotten anything and it comes off, I'm not in the firing line. So I'm just getting the dust off my visor. That'll do. So visor on, I'm standing out of the way, start the lathe up, and then bring the speed up. That's about 3 inches, so I could probably go up to anywhere up to about 2000 RPM, but I'm at about 1500 RPM there, which is good sort of speed to be at, I think, for this. So I'm just going to use my spindle roughing gauge on here and just rough that down to a cylinder to start with. I'm not worried if there's the odd little bit of a flat on it, but I want it sort of fairly close to being a cylinder. And then I need to put a spigot on one end to put that in the chuck. So I've got my calipers here already preset. I'm just going to use a standard parting tool to put a spigot on one end. I'm just going straight in on the end and using my calipers on the end of that. I think that's just off the start, isn't it?
There you go, thank you.
There you go. Let's see that there. Possibly even if I do. No, that's going to get in the way. So I do it that way. Right, so I'm just going straight in on the end with a parting tool and using the calipers to gauge that until I get to the right diameter. And then make that spigot a bit longer. I've got quite a deep set of jaws here, so I can make quite a long spigot here. So that's all I need to do between centres. You see there's the odd bit of a flat on there. In fact, there's only the one flat on there, but that doesn't matter too much at this stage really. So take the tailstock away. Take my Morse taper adapter out of the chuck. And then I can put my piece of wood in there. When you put the piece of wood in, don't hold it along the edge because you tend to twist and tip. I would just push it in from the center, so it's going to hopefully seat evenly on the jaws. And then I'll tighten the jaws up, and that's going to be as centered as it's going to get. I mean, sometimes you tighten the jaws up and it's going to pull the wood one way or the other because the wood's going to compress slightly, but that's not anything too much to worry about. Right, so from here I want to make sort of the top 2/3 of that conical as my outline for my tree. I could do it with a skew, I could do it with a spindle roughing gauge. It's probably slightly quicker with a spindle roughing gauge. Let's do it that way. So that's probably as far as I need to go with a spindle roughing gauge. So from then on, it's all going to be with a skew. I've got my sort of roughed out shape. I'm using this one, which is an oval skew, straight edge oval skew. Generally, I sharpen my skews by hand. You can probably see if I just stop the lathe and hold that there. You can see the bevel on that side. There's sort of a dark area in the middle and shiny front and back. That's because initially that was ground hollow on the wheel, and then since then I've ground it with a little flat hone. This is a diamond hone, so I just put that on the bevel, rock it until I know I've got it flat on the bevel, and a few strokes on that side, flip it over, do the same on the other side, just rock it to get it flat on the bevel, and then same on the other side. And that's what I normally do to sharpen this. It doesn't go on a grinder. I'll just do it by hand. I prefer it that way because I prefer a flat bevel on it, and that's an easy enough way of achieving the flat bevel. So carry on with the turning. So I'm going to create sort of steps on my tree, and with using the skew, where I think a lot of people go wrong is to leave the rest where it was when you're using the other tools like I just did. But to help, if you bring the rest up higher, Just need to move that in a little bit now. That's probably slightly too high for that narrow end. So I'm putting that, if you're looking at end on, the position of that rest is probably 10:30 in relation to a clock face. So it's above centre, considerably above centre now. So when I use the skew, I'm cutting in the bottom third or so. So if you imagine sort of dividing that into half or into thirds, it's definitely the bottom edge where I want to be cutting. I'm using the short edge rather than the long edge here. And if I put the skew on the wood there, nothing happens, but as I rotate clockwise, the tip comes into contact and it will then make a cut. So I can start to peel wood off basically.
Your screen froze up and then we lost you.
Oh right, must have lost connection temporarily. I didn't notice that, but yeah, back now hopefully.
Yeah, we got you now.
Right, good. Right, let me get my other camera set up. So there's where I got to. Where did I get cut off?
When you were teaching the skew.
Right, okay. So I've done the first section with the skew and just created a little bead on the top. So we'll carry on from there.
Sounds
Hopefully
good.
I won't lose connection again. Right then. Yeah, I just looked up to switch cameras and noticed I wasn't on the screen. I thought, what's going on here? Right then, so we've got the first section turned there, and I've been doing that with the heel of the skew. So I'm just going to put a straightforward sort of V-cut here, out there, just to mark the next section. And again, use the heel of the skew and roll that into the cut to get a bevel supported cut there, and then I can come in with the long point here to clean that up, and then back to the heel of the skew to take the wispy bits out of there. So
Please
just
note,
cleaning up
folks,
that
these are all
joint.
slicing cuts.
Sorry, what was that?
These are all slicing cuts for those novices.
Pretty
wondering
much,
what
yes. Yeah, I'm
fluted
trying to get a
is.
clean cut straight off the tool, so I don't need to sand any of this. That's left quite a sharp corner on that top section, so I'm just going to use the skew just to bevel it, just a fraction, just to take that sharp edge off, that's all. This is pine, so if you leave your sharp edge like that, you might get a little bit of splintering and damage there, so just to avoid that. So I'll do a V-cut for the next section. So tool flat against the wood, then roll it clockwise until the point comes into contact, and keep that cut on the bottom third. As this diameter is increasing, I can take the rest up just a little bit more now, because I want to keep that rest high up at about the sort of the 10:30 position.
Yep.
If you're sort of equating that to a clock face. A few cuts there. Turn the skew over, use the long point to do a cut straight across the end grain there, just to clean that up. And then back to the slicing cut with a short point, just to clean it into the edge there. And again, just bevel that edge, just to take off any little wispy bits that might be there. And then next section, same again, do your V-cut initially just to delineate where you're going to start that next cut. Push that one up. And now the long point again, with the tool held pretty much vertical. And on that cut, I'm using the right bevel, almost pointing straight across to make that cut. So I'm positioning the handle. You can see the angle of the tool there, because I'm positioning the bevel on the right side straight across. I'll just get rid of the little wispy bits on that one. And again, just bevel that corner just to get rid of any sharp edge there. I can probably just about do one more. So put that one in there. Another advantage of doing these out of pine is it's a Christmas tree that smells like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I sometimes just do these unfinished and people can take them away and paint them and decorate them, do what they want with them. But you could polish it, you could paint it, do all sorts of things with it. I'll just clean up that last cut. And on that one, I think I could feel a bit of a knocking here. There's probably a knot or something. Let's just have a look. Yeah, there's a knot there, and no, there's no specific knot there, but I think it's the line coming up from that knot. It's just a slight change in the density of the wood. I could feel it. Right, so now the base. There's a number of different ways you can go with that in terms of shape. I tend to do it as if it had got a bucket under it. So now I'm using a round skew that's cut straight across, and I'm just going to use that to do initially a peeling cut straight in, as if it was a parting tool really. So we'll take some of this wood away, and then I'm tapering this down to be the base for the tree, and just do it as if it was in a bucket or a barrel or whatever you want to put your tree in. And then I'm trying to do a fairly light cut across that to clean it up, and then I just need to clean the bottom edge of the tree. So I'll go back to my wider oval skew for that. I could use the narrower skew, I suppose, but I prefer this one for this job. Cut that in. Again, bevel that corner. And then come in there with my skew and just clean up that top edge like that. And then I need to part that off. So I'm going to bring my tool rest back down again now to sort of around centre height. And to part it off, I could use a conventional parting tool, but being pine, that's going to leave a fairly rough finish across the bottom. So I've got this, which is a fluted parting tool. And underneath, you can see there, it's got the flute. But what I've done, because that flute tends to dig into the tool rest, I've got a little steel rod here that's the right size for that particular flute, and it's just held on with an elastic band. So that protects the tool rest. I mean, this is a hardened tool rest anyway, so it probably doesn't matter, but none of my other rests are hardened, so it makes sense, and it protects the edge of the tool as well. Yeah, this also doubles up as a little beading tool, so if you wanted a sort of 1/8 of an inch or so bead, you can use the tip of this tool to do that. But as you cut in with this, do that parting cut, because you got those pronounced wings, it slices the edge, so it gives you a slightly better finish. I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it's better than just a straight parting cut. So I'll cut in so far with that, and then I'll just widen the cut just a little, as I would with a conventional parting tool. Just sliding that rod forward, so I'll make sure that's on the rest. If I had a bit more wood at the base there, I could do another cut with a skew, but I'm a bit short on wood. So I'm just using the the right point of this tool to try and clean up the base. And then I'm down to 1/4 of an inch or so there. You can see that's starting to wobble a bit. So I'll hold on and just part through. And then you see there, I've left a stub there. I deliberately parted off away from the base rather than right up to it, because that last little bit that you part through twists and breaks. So you end it with broken fibres, and if those are adjacent to the bottom of your piece of wood, at the base of your whatever you just turned, those broken fibers will propagate back into the bottom, and it's very difficult to get rid of. So by allowing that little stub and the break being farther out, that makes that far easier to clean up. So the cleanup stage, I've got a little sanding arbor in a piece of wood. That was just the bottom of something I parted off, and I've just drilled a hole in it. That's got 80 grit in it, which won't take long at all. I'll just put on my extractor. So I just want to sand that stub off the bottom. And it's not a perfect finish on the bottom with that fluted parting tool, but it's far better than it would have been with a conventional parting tool. So I've got a little bit of sanding to do on the bottom, but not too much. That's pretty much enough there. Then I can drop down to the finer grit, go down to 120, just to improve on that. So that's sanded that at 120. I can go down through the grits further if I want, but that'll do for now. Turn the extractor off. So that's basic Christmas tree, and that finish on the tree is good enough as it is. It doesn't need any sanding. If you get a nice clean cut off the skew, none of that needs sanding.
Yep.
And even the cuts here where I've cut into the end grain under each section of the tree, good clean cut, because I had a really sharp skew. And I think that's half of the battle with the skew, is make sure it's as sharp as you can make it. The cleaner the cut you get, the better, and the less pressure there is fighting against you trying to make the cut. So that's the first one. So any questions on that?
No,
I like
that's
the
good.
project. It's nice. I love when you can cut it clean with a skew and you don't need to get all that sandpaper out.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like a properly
But,
sharpened.
I mean, as I
knife
said
and a
earlier,
block plane.
it's a nice project to treat as a practice for using the skew. And I mean, this time of year, they don't take too long to make, and yeah, definitely a good one for as a practice piece for a skew. Right, so we'll do something else. I've got another piece of the same 3x3 pine. Mark the centers out as before. You don't have to be terribly precise. You can see there I've got a 1/4 inch box in the end, but that just narrows down where I eyeball the center. So as long as that just gives me somewhere to aim for to mark the center, that's close enough. It doesn't need to be precision here. If I'm plus or minus 1/8 of an inch, that's pretty good.
That's pretty close for a wood turner, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably within better than a 1/16 of an inch doing that in general, but if I was a little bit out and I took that down to a cylinder, all I would end up with is a slightly smaller cylinder. So it's not a big
Right.
deal if it isn't too accurate.
Hey, Paul,
but
that Morse taper adapter, where's that come
Yep.
from?
That's an Axminster product.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'll just knock the center out. Release it. There you go. So it's got a. I mean, on the outside it looks straight. So you just grip that in your chuck jaws, either the center or the edge, and in there's a number 2 taper.
Nice. Yeah, I got to get me one of them.
They used to do 2 variants. That one is the one with the straight sides. I'll see if I can find the other one. And then there's this one that's actually dovetailed. They're about the same diameter, about a 2-inch diameter. But this one's a dovetail, so that will go inside a set of dovetail jaws. The other one, I'm using it inside these gripper jaws because they're effectively parallel jaws rather than dovetailed.
Good to know.
Right. So yeah, they're useful tools, and
Yes.
certainly if you're trying to just save a bit of time,
Right.
demos and things like that, and yeah, definitely.
One of our research members will find that in a few minutes and put it in the chat, won't you?
Yeah.
They will. They'll find it. They'll put it up there.
I think we found there are Axminster stockists in the US, and I'm pretty sure on another one of my demos I had a very similar discussion, and we did find they are available in the US, at least one of the 2. Right, so I'll set up my rest again, spin the piece of wood to make sure that misses. And back to my spindle roughing gauge. Start off slow, bring the speed up before I can stand in front of that piece of wood. And then, you notice here I start the cut on the wood rather than on the end. That way I don't get any long splinters coming off. So I just cut towards the corner and then I can cut back and forth. I'm just trying to take that down to more or less a cylinder. And as before, I want to make a spigot on the end of that. So I'm just going to bring my rest in slightly. So parting tool on the end. I've got my calipers set to the diameter of my piece of wood for my spigot. Put the calipers on the end and hold that and guide it in. So that's the diameter I want for my spigot. Make that a bit longer. Yeah, for this sort of work, I quite like the gripper jaws, or shark jaws, or whatever you want to call them. They're sort of serrated inside and out, and they grip really well. You can see there, I still got the odd flat on there, but I'm not too worried about that. The first thing I'm going to do is put this in the chuck and center it up, and because usually you put a piece of wood in the chuck, you tighten the chuck up, and it might not, but it might run off. So if it does run off, it's not a big deal. I'm not wasting time getting it round when I'm roughing it down from square, and then getting it round again when I put it in here, because if that runs off a bit and I've got to trim it, then it's not a big problem. So I'll just bring my rest back in, lock that down. So we'll do another Christmas theme one this time, but we'll do a snowman this time. I'll do it with a spindle gauge, or at least a lot of it. You can do a bit of both here. I mean, let's say the top's going to be the hat, and I'll just turn it all as a single piece of wood. So I can use my skew for some of it, and I'll use my spindle roughing gauge for some of the other bits. So you can see there that is running off. So I'll just true it up. So if there were any flats that I left, I'll probably take most of those away anyway. So initially, I'm just going to square off the end of this piece of wood. Let me just switch to the other camera. Just adjust that angle slightly. Right, so on the end, long point down. Use the long point to make the cut, and position the skew so the bevel is pointing straight across. So my skew is actually at an angle across the end of the piece of wood, but the bevel is pointing at 90 degrees to the bed. So I'll come in on the edge here, get that cut started there, and push in and try and cut that all the way to the middle. I've got a little bit to take off there because I've left that, obviously got a center hole there that my live center created at that initial stage. So really I'm trying to clean this end up and just get rid of the hole the live center left. So if I want a flat topped hat, I can leave that as it is. If I want to put a bit of a curve on the top of the hat, I can do that as well. So we'll cut a bit of a curve. Again, I'll just continue with the long point of the skew. This part is probably best done with the skew instead of the spindle gauge, because slicing the end grain like this with the skew is hopefully going to leave me a much better finish. So I'm just trying to get a nice curve from edge to center here. That's it, got it that time. So I'll just dome the top of that slightly, and then onto the side So to make a hat here, let's say my hat's going to be about that big, I can cut some of this wood away. Initially take some rough cuts, but when I'm approaching the final sort of shape and size, get finer with the cut. And then here I want to come in almost at 90 degrees to make the rim of the hat. And I can leave that little bit of a band there, just as a decorative sort of feature on the hat. This cut on the rim, I've done it with the spindle gauge, but again, I could bring the skew in and just clean that up with the skew if I thought I needed to. So again, we're trying to get the cleanest cut possible. So I'll do that bit with the skew, see how that looks. And I want a moderately narrow rim, but if I cut that really thin with pine, it's going to be very fragile. So I've got to be reasonable about how thin I can make that without the rim sort of disintegrating. So I'll leave enough wood to give me a little bit of leeway. Peel a bit of that off. So start off at the top with a head. So you want to make something that's roughly round. I need to cut that a little bit smaller just to get rid of that parting cut that I've made, so that's got rid of that. You can make these out of almost any sort of wood. I mean, if you want proper snowman, you want it light in colour, then choose a light coloured wood. You can always colour it with whatever you want. Slicing up the underside of the hat, clean that up. And as I said before, I'm not going to cut that ridiculously thin because this is pine and that would just be really fragile. So I've left a little bit of thickness there, more than I would probably like, but I think you've got to work with what wood you're using really. So trying to get right in on that corner with the skew just to clean that up. And at this point here, I can move on to the body. Some people make snowmen out of effectively 3 sections. I tend to do 2. I don't know why, I just do. There's no right or wrong. Your snowman could be as many sections as you want it to be. I tend to do just a circular body and a head. That's it. So I keep them pretty simple, I would say. Also makes them easier to turn because there's less pieces.
Well,
So we'll get rid of a bit of this.
It looks like me, Paul. I mean, a little bit of head and a whole lot of belly.
Sorry, can you say that again?
It looks a little bit like me, a nice head and a whole lot of belly.
No comment. So I just want to round off this bottom section. I just removed a bit of the waste wood down here just to give me some room to work.
You wonder where sanding goes? Watch his cut.
That's right.
I'll put right in there to that V point there. Something around the bottom half over a little bit more.
Paul's one of the founding members of the Anti-Sanding Club.
Yeah. I think Mark Soleil's in that club too.
Yes, he is.
That's where Ronnie learned it.
All right, so let's have a look at that. That's not too bad off a spindle gauge. That's not going to take a huge amount of sand in. I mean, if I go straight into that with, let's say 180 grit.
Now that is pine he's turning, folks. Pine. If you're a real good turner, you'll understand.
I won't spend a lot of time sanding this, but just to show you the sort of principle of it, I'll just sand it to 180 and leave it at that for the time being. We'll do that. So if I'd have done more of that with the skew, I probably could have not sanded this either. So that's enough. I've cleaned up the rough actually. I've got a little bit of a chip there on the top, on the band of the hat. I don't quite see it. You just about see it on the camera. Yeah, just about see it on the camera there. So I'm just going to clean that up. I'll just cut some of that away, I think, or cut it away completely. See how that looks. That's better. It's not perfect, but it'll do. Right, so the top bit, what I often do with these, if you've got yourself a good marker pen, you can just colour it with the marker pen, like this. In fact, I'll just get the lathe running really slow. You don't want the lathe running fast because it'll just wear out your pen, but get the lathe running really slow. You can get brush pens, but this is just a bog standard marker pen. I do have brush pens, but for an area this size, I thought I'd just use a marker pen. Clean up that bit there. We'll do it across the top of the hat. You can obviously use spirit dyes and things like that as well. Anything really. Paint the rim. And then I'll do the underside of the rim, trying to avoid hitting the dome, the spear that forms the head, just the rim itself.
Oh,
Like that. So I'll blacken the top. Doesn't take long. All I would do with that on the lathe now is really just to part it off. I've got to put a face on it, obviously, but I wouldn't do that on the lathe anyway. So I'm just going to bring the speed back up. We'll just turn a bit more this away. A little bit faster. And I want a bit of a flat on the bottom because I want this to sit nicely on whatever surface I put it on. So this time I can use my skew to get rid of some of this and to create my flat at the bottom. And as we're trying to make the bottom of anything, it helps if you just try and make that slightly concave, so it's going to sit flat on whatever surface you put it on. So getting the angle right helps with that. Just part that off. And then you can see I've got a fairly clean cut there. It's just that bit in the middle that I can sort of cut away with a skew like this. Or again, go back to my little sanding arbor and take it off with that. That's probably even quicker and easier. I mean, the issue with doing it with a skew or a knife or something like that is you're holding that in one hand and then you're cutting with the other. So if you get that wrong and slip, you might cut yourself. But doing it this way with a sanding arbor there, there's no danger of you doing yourself any harm really. Just keep a good grip. You've got both hands on your piece of work. you can stand that away in a couple of seconds and it's done. The one thing my snowman is missing now is a face. The nose, I just drill a hole in there, very small, 1/8 of an inch, something around that sort of size, and then find a piece of suitable wood like this. I think that's sycamore, or what the English version of sycamore, which we might call something else, but yeah, I'll use a bit of that. So I'll use my round skew just to reduce the diameter here, just do a peeling cut to bring that down. So decide on a suitable diameter for the nose, let's say that's about right. So I just want to make a piece of pretty much carrot shaped piece of wood. So I'll use my skew to shape that. I'll need a little bit more length here. Again, a peeling cut to bring this down. So how long is long enough? About there, I think. So there's my carrot, and I'm just going to try and get a caliper on that. I'll just measure it to, let's go for 3mm. I know I've got a 3mm drill. Right, so that's what I'm aiming for. Nearly that. Pretty close. Yeah, that's just on there. It's just, it'll be fractionally over, but being as the rest of the piece is in soft pine, I think I can get away with that. So I'll trim that bit on the end, that little blob, and then somewhere I have got some brush pens, so I was just going to use a brush pen to colour the nose in. Bear with me a sec while I find them. Alright, so I've got me an orange brush pen to colour the carrot in. And then I can use my skew just to, I probably don't need quite as much of that. So there's my little carrot nose ready to go on. Right, just need to find myself a drill. This is where it gets interesting, because my wife always borrows my 3mm drill, so I never know whether they are. I might have a spare one in my box. Just give me a sec. Oop, not that one. So this is that.
That one almost didn't want to be found.
Yeah.
Drill bits can
There's
be
two
found
things,
with a magnet.
I have to live with in my workshop. One is my wife coming and using my belt sander. Oh, that's a 3. That'll do.
Okay.
To sand the bottoms of those enamel bowls, and the other thing, she comes in and borrows my drills. Right, this one will do.
Most couples I know that spend time in a workshop, they have their own sets of tools. They don't trust each
Yeah.
other with their tools.
Oh, she never uses any of the other tools. It's just the drill and the belt sander, and that's it. So find a suitable sort of center position around about there. Aim for the widest point, really, I suppose. Drill a hole that's deep enough so your spigot's going to go in all the way, and then hopefully I can just push that in. And because that spigot's slightly oversized, that's a good push fit. I've not put any glue on it, but that isn't going to fall out. But you could pull it out if you really wanted to. The eyes and the mouth, what I do with those, and the buttons down the front, I tend to not. You can turn little buttons and eyes and the mouth like little pieces of coal. What I've got, which I can't do now because it takes too long, is it's a fabric paint that you put on, you let it dry, and the following day you blow it with a hot air source like a hairdryer or paint strip or something like that, and the paint blows up and expands, so it actually looks like little bits of coal. So that's what I use. I put sort of blobs on for the eyes, mouth, and buttons down the front. Leave it till the following day. Blast it with some hot air. The paint expands and pops up, and it looks quite realistic. So that's what I do for the features on it. But yeah, you can paint them on. You can turn little bits to put on, or use anything really. You can use little beads, even stick those on. So many different ways of doing that. But again, just a quick project out of a piece of, in this case, pine, but you can make them out of almost anything you want. And just another idea for the sort of Christmas ideas.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
that's nice.
Paul, I'm going to interject here, but it gives you good tool usage practice. If you want
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
slice, number one, you're using pine, and Ronnie Bonnet made pine popular with us with the 2x4 Club 2 years ago. You're using pine, which is not easy to work with, which makes you better using your tools.
Yeah,
'cause
I mean,
if you
pine's
over-
very unforgiving. If you get it wrong, it lets you know, doesn't it? So it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
great wood for instant feedback on your cut.
And what you're doing requires almost no sanding. You see, I'm moving my shop into the house, and I made a promise that I would never generate sawdust.
Yeah.
Ever. I made that promise to my wife.
Uh-huh.
If y'all watch for the police reports on that, because if she hits me with a stick, that's where I'm going.
Yep.
But sanding is not my bailiwick, but that is good slicing is my bailiwick. I love it.
Yep, good tool control and presentation.
Yes. Paul,
Yeah, I
thank
mean,
you so much.
it's a good one for practicing.
It is, certainly is. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
Hey,
You're
Paul,
welcome.
Questions
you,
for
Paul.
Paul?
Okay.
Yeah. what did you say you used for the eyes and the nose that you heat up?
It's a fabric paint. It comes in a tube, and you just put blobs of it on. I'll go and grab it. I'll tell you what, I'll go and grab it. So yeah, I'll go and find some of it. I know exactly where it is, but it just takes a day to do it, because you put it on and let it dry, and then you heat it to make it expand. But I'll go and grab, and I'll just show you what I've got.
Okay,
That'll
Paul.
be the easiest way.
I see Paul was back, but he popped back out of the screen.
Yeah.
real quick. Now I
Yeah, I'm
think
back
he's
here.
back
Yeah, I
again.
found the paint.
All right.
What I've got is this. It says it's acrylic dimensional paint. The brand is Americana. Comes in all sorts of colors. As it happened, I found the one that's black. But yeah, you can get it in all sorts of colors. But what it says on the back is you put it on. Yeah. And you leave it till the following day, and then you heat it with sort of a hair dryer or hot air paint strip or something like that, and that will expand the paint, but you've got to let it dry first. So you put on a little bit of this. So I'm just going to do it on this. Let me switch back to my camera over here. I'll show you this. This paint's starting to go off. Actually, it's a bit thicker than it should be. But I'll see what I can do.
Got a needle point. That's good for control.
Yeah, it's got a fine-ish point. But yeah, this is a bit thicker than I would like. I think it's certainly past its best. But yeah, you can do the eyes, and then I mean it doesn't have to be perfectly regular, because one thing with this, you're trying to emulate pieces of coal, so it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. But you just put blobs where you want them.
Remember, there are no specific requirements for this. If it looks nice in your eye, it's gonna look nice in their eye.
Right?
And then down the front, some buttons. Always odd numbers, so 3 or 5. So I just put those on, but I'll leave that till it's dry tomorrow, and then hit it with some hot air, and the paint will expand. It blows up quite a bit. So those little spots will be sort of 3 times as big.
How long does it take with the hairdryer to pop it up?
Oh, literally seconds. But
Really?
yeah, you've got to
Wow.
leave it overnight to dry, and then the following
Right.
day, hit it with some hot air, and it'll pop out within seconds.
Huh.
Yeah,
I
just
like-
a few seconds.
And it's fine, but I like the use of the grain, the way you laid it out there, where you drilled the nose and placed the other thing.
Yeah.
Grain.
Yeah, I mean, I've put it in the center of the growth things there, so it's sort of framing the face
Yes, very nice.
rather than doing it at the side there. I thought that made more sense.
It did. Wow. There you go, folks. There's a snowman.
So if that dries and I pop it out, I'll show you at the next meeting the finished result.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it so
Yeah, I
much.
think this paint's on its last legs. I've had it for years, and I think it's drying out a bit. Actually, it's getting a bit thick, but just about got away with it.
Well, I got to say, hats off to you, Paul. Thanks for staying up and putting on these demos tonight. And
No problem.
I learned a little bit from you, and I sure hope everybody else learned a little bit as well.